Good morning. We are going to be starting in a few minutes. And I know that you're thinking, like, bookstore events, isn't that the bookstore's role? Don't they set that all up? I'll reach out to them and they'll want to host me for, my book launch. And yes, they do want to host events, but we're going to get into today why almost all the that you are really the marketing director for your um, for your book launch or your book event, or even a year after your book comes out. You can still be booking and scheduling events, not just at bookstores, at libraries, at community centers, at senior centers, at schools. You can be doing all of this, and still a lot of it is your job, especially if you want the result to be something that is usable for you as a marketing asset. And that's why we do these things. So we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. But as you come on, let me know where you are, because chances are, first of all, anywhere that's not freezing and frigid, because I am in Boston. But come on and tell me where you are, put it in the chat so that we can connect and maybe have a virtual coffee. Before we get into bookstore events, I have to tell you that I was at a library event last night, and gosh, it was so good because we had prepared. The author and I had created social posts and a flyer that we gave to the library, and social tiles that we gave to the library, and commentary and promotional language for the social posts that we gave to the library, and we posted on community group Facebook pages and on Instagram and all the socials. And we had the bookstore there selling books. I mean, all of these little elements add up. But you didn't hear me say the library prepared all of this, because they don't. They don't. The librarians are literally running a building and a staff and dozens of events every month, depending on how big your library is. So we're going to get started in about 4 minutes. But gosh, I have to tell you, no matter if you're at a store and you have a packed house and standing room only, or you're at a bookstore and no one shows up and it's just you and your spouse or your best friend or the bookstore owner, it does not matter, because that event is not truly just about reaching the people in the room. It is actually about the best thing about events where you are presenting is that you get to take images and video that will be your marketing assets for the next 3 years. You didn't think of that, did you? No, of course you didn't, because everyone's thinking, oh, I'm throwing a party and everyone has to have a good time. Nope. You can actually throw a party. Nobody has to be there, but the images themselves are important, because there are, this is what I say. At every event, there are 7 marketing assets that you can gather, whether you have attendees or not, but there are 7 marketing assets you can gather wherever you go, a library, a bookstore, wherever, that you will take with you, that will serve you and your marketing efforts for the next 3 years. And in a minute, I will share exactly what those are. And it is literally like naming the 7 dwarves. I always forget one, but we'll go over some of them. The key to all of these events is to make sure that you bring all the props that you need beforehand in promotion, that you drive the promotion, that you drive what kind of partnership you're offering to the bookstore, and the bookstore owner and the community, and you kind of forecast that and make that repeatable for yourself, because there is nothing worse than feeling like you are starting at square one every single time. And then make sure somebody, not you, is taking some photos, and they can take them on their phone. They can take video on their phone. All of these things are usable. I mean, iPhone, Apple iPhones that have a global contest about photography taken with your phone. So if they can do that, you can have your neighbor's daughter take pictures of you and take video, and those will be useful. Believe me. So we're going to get started in 2 minutes so that I can share with you the elements of a successful bookstore event. And you will be surprised when I do a little show and tell about what you need. What you need, and the things that you can't control don't matter that much. They really don't. You're going to be so relieved to learn that it's not about attendance. It's not like you're selling tickets to a concert and the concert's efforts and success depends on, profits from that one evening. That's not what this is. Not what this is at all. So as you join, go ahead and put hello or welcome or bestseller in the chat, because we do love some bookstores, indie bookstores, even, the big box bookstores. Barnes and Noble has great events. And still, they will still look to you to set up those events. Let me take a sip of that. Okay. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for showing up for yourself and for each other. Today, we're talking about successful bookstore events and what you can do to make sure that your bookstore event is going to be successful. And that starts with defining success. And let's start with what success is not. Success for your bookstore event is not packing the house. Those are, that's a different kind of success. That is you thinking that you are throwing a party. You are not throwing a party. You are throwing an event where you are the star. You are also the marketing director. You are also the publicist. You are also thinking about the end result, which is not the end of the event. The event itself is an opportunity for the people present to engage with you, but more so, and I'm going to whisper this really, I just want you to pay attention. A bookstore event and a library event are so valuable to you because you are there surrounded by your books with signage behind you. And the most important thing that can come out of that is the marketing assets that you take with you. Those are photos and videos and any quotes that you overhear or someone overhears with you, the transcript of the video. There are at least 7 marketing assets that can come out of anywhere you go. Even if it's not an event and you show up at a bookstore and there isn't an event, but you have your phone with you and you can capture some images, those images are useful for 3 years. I say 3 years because by then you might have a different haircut, or by then you might have a new book. But anywhere you go, the result that you're taking with you is a toolbox of marketing assets. And when you think about everywhere you go, you're like, oh my God, if I'm doing all these events, I'll be drowning in photos and videos. Well, yes, you will if you keep setting up so many events. But when you realize that you can gather so many marketing assets, you can do actually fewer events. I mean, they're laborious. They're a lot of work. They're a lot of work for you. They're a lot of work for the bookstore owner who has to stay open a little bit later. They put out some sparkling wine and cheese and crackers sometimes. Sometimes they don't. They have to pay somebody to stay late. So there's some costs for them, unseen costs, hidden costs to you. Then, annoyingly, people buy the book before they get there, and they buy the book from what indie bookstore owners call the big A. I'm doing air quotes, air bunnies, the big A. And they have the gall to show up with a book that they didn't buy from the bookstore and essentially come to get your signature or just come for your talk and then leave. And that it really burns the bookstore owners. Just it makes them spit nails. So the elements of a successful event are these. And I'm just going to list them for you in priority order. Number 1, you are prepared. Meaning when you reach out to the bookstore owner, you're not saying, "Hey, I'd like to come and have a bookstore event. Ta-da, I'm the star," because that no one really wants to hear you talk about you. And most authors are not comfortable public speakers. I mean, they are actually wonderful public speakers, but if you're like most authors, you're like a deer in headlights because the bookstore owner says, "And welcome Allison Lane," and you're just standing there in the spotlight thinking like, am I going to just talk about what's in my book? And then most authors make this huge mistake. They just talk about what's in their book, which this is not a book report. It's not 10th grade. No one wants to hear you talk about what's in your book at your bookstore event. Unless you are Ann Patchett and we all want to, or Brene Brown, we want to really dig in. But even those authors at an event, they don't tell you, they don't go into like, this is what happens in chapter 9. You know why? Because it's freaking boring. No one's there for a book report. They want you to be the spokesperson for the topics that you write about, even when you're writing memoir. Even when you're writing memoir, you might be writing about adventure or identity or bureaucracy in the adoption system and or healthy marriage or longevity or living fully or I don't know, downsizing. It doesn't matter what's in the book. The event itself is more impactful to the community and more people lean in and are interested to attend when you go into it thinking, I am giving my insight to the people who learn about this and who attend. Because that's your job, right? So the first thing is approaching the bookstore with an intent to educate and share, not to sell your book, because people first have to know you and they have to feel like they're getting something from you before they want to hand over their $28. Even though $28 is a low price of entry, especially if you have, like a course or you're a consultant or you run a program or something. So this is really, you're doing a public service. When you show up to the bookstore, you should have certain elements with you. And some of these you're going to say, oh my gosh, really? Something this like obvious? Yes, this obvious. Starting with, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. Starting with a stack of your books. The bookstore did not order 20 of your books. So next to you, next to the chair where you are, there should be a table and there should be a stack of your books that looks like this behind me. See this? This is ADHD for Smartass Women. And then there's a stack. It's a little stack because I have some more nearby. But a stack, you're making your own display. It is not their job to make something that is going to show up great um, in pictures, because they do this all day long. If they did that, they'd be like, well, we're event planners. That's not their job. So you want to make sure that you have some kind of display. This is what I'm pointing at. The second thing that you want is to have your cover on a like a foam board that is propped up, not just because it needs to be bigger. It could be whatever this is, like 2x2. You can get those made at FedEx, at UPS, at Kinko's. It might cost you $10. Make sure it's laminated so you can use it over and over again, and that it has a stand on the back. Okay, the third thing I'm going to show you is this little guy, a little plexiglass stand, because the library, or the bookstore, let's call it the bookstore, they don't have extras. All of theirs are being used. And so you don't want to show up and say, oh, do you have all the supplies I'm going to need to make sure that this event is successful? They're going to be like, you didn't come with anything? Okay, well, let me disassemble our event, our front table, so that you can have this stand. No, show up with the things that you're going to need. And if you plan ahead, you will know you're going to need one of these. You can get a pack of 6 of these for like $11. And make sure you don't get the one that has the lip here, because then it shows in pictures, and we don't want that. So we want it to look like this. See this right here. And this is Emptying the Nest, Getting Better at Goodbyes by Morgan Baker, she is so dang funny. And she wrote a book about, this is not funny, but about the depression that she fell into when her eldest daughter, went off to college. But the depression really hit when the litter of puppies that her dog had to, be left the house. Her dog had 10 puppies, and she and her husband kept one, and then 9, she had to say goodbye to 9 puppies. And it was just the straw that, broke her. And the way she tells it is freaking hilarious. So this is what we're looking for right here. Okay. To invest in this. This maybe $6. I mean, you could get a pack of 3 for, I think, $6. I got a pack of 6, and I didn't think I would use them, but I use them all the time. And they're itty bitty. Okay. Number 4 of things that you should show up to the bookstore with. Okay. This is showing up. Show up with a list of books you recommend. Not that you love, but you will always get this question. Well, we love your book, but what are you reading? You will always get that question. And then you don't want to be tap dancing. And you also want to recommend books that the bookstore has in stock, because you will be doing them a super, super solid if you tell them in advance, hey, I always get this question. These are some of the books I recommend. It might be great if you put some of those out. You know why? People don't love buying one book at a time when they go to a bookstore event. It feels to them like they're being cheap, which I'm not judging. So maybe they have a money block or something, but they like to grab your book and another book. So anticipate that. Give them that option, because that's what they actually want. And the bookstore owner will really appreciate the fact that you're anticipating those needs. So on your list should be some books that are in the mainstream. So please don't include a book that came out 20 years ago that is super niche. We want these books to be, look fresh. I would include on your list books that are mostly published in the last 3 years, because those will be fresh. And make sure that they're not all in one genre, because people don't read genre books. They read around a topic. So if your book is about overcoming depression and reclaiming your identity, uh, then if you wrote a memoir, you can include one memoir, maybe two, but also include a psychology book and a science book and maybe an entrepreneurial book that's about that. I mean, because people aren't, they're not like, great, I read your story. Now I want to read another memoir about the exact same thing. That's not what they're looking for. They're whole people, and they read, they might have read a book that's about your experience, but also they want to read about what they can do. And that means you have to overflow into other genres. The final tip I have for bookstore events is don't go it alone. Okay. I talked about you showing up with solo and being like a deer in headlights. Don't do that. Make sure that you invite someone who can facilitate a conversation, even when you know you're going to give them the questions that they're going to ask you, because it's not their job to be a TV host. Not many people are like me, where I'm like, I do this for a living. I'll tell you the questions that I'm going to ask you. And P.S., none of them are going to be about what happens in your book or, exactly what happens in your book, because most people who come to those events, they haven't read your book yet. And they don't want a book report. And the bookstore owner does not want you to read from your book. You know why? First of all, it's boring. No one wants to be read to. But most importantly, no one's going to buy your book after you read it to them. They're not. And it is a total seat sinker when people start reading and they read for more than 30 seconds. I mean, yikes, snooze fest. Nobody wants it. They want you to talk to them about the universal themes, what they should do, what they should think about. If you're a historian, talk about the act of doing research, not how you found out and then wrote about what's on page 67. It's boring. Okay, so those are the elements that you're going to show up with. You're going to find someone who can complement what you're sharing. If you're writing a empowerment book about living your best life, bring a sociologist with you. Bring a local restaurateur who used to be a financier or like an accountant, but always had this dream, because that makes it interesting. That makes it applicable to the people in the room. And P.S., it brings another person into the marketing mix so that then you can promote you and this other person holding your book like this, not down here. Like, do you see how immediately you can't see this? You have to anticipate that when anyone snaps your image at a bookstore event or a library event, wherever you are, if you hold the book down here, it gets edited out once the images are edited for social or for, your website or anything. No one can see this. And you know why? Because you have to hold your book above the nipple, not like that, not above the armpit. That looks weird, right? It's really nipple level. And I say nipple because we're all grown-ups, but this is true. That you can't edit this out, and you want to make sure that it's visible. And that if you have a light colored cover, that you were wearing something dark, because otherwise this will bleed into you. Whatever you're wearing should be should really just frame the book cover, because you are essentially designing, a frame for this. So emptying the nest, this is like it's like an off-white beige cover. Boom. Now, if you're writing, you know, if you're writing, this is another client of mine, Devorah Heitner, wrote Growing Up in Public. So see, this is not lovely. So I would wear probably, you know, I would probably wear yellow to really make this pop, but something that is solid, because nobody wants to fight with paisley or your favorite top, which is plaid. No, that is, we don't care about that. We care about the book showing up. Okay, because this is the money shot. This is what you have to get at your event, with the signage of the store behind you. If you are just standing in front of a beige wall, then you've missed the mark, because this image has no context at all. So even if you and the organizer or the bookstore owner are standing in front of the store and not even, at the event, that's better than, standing at the register where they're just a bunch of tchotchkes being sold. We want to see you, your book, and the signage. And then you, your book, the signage, and the bookstore owner or the bookstore manager. And then we want to see you, your book, and a stack of books and the signage. And we want to see you, your book, and a line of people waiting to get your signature. So that image can't be taken by you, because it has to be taken from the back of the room so that we can see that line. And we're going to see the backs of everybody's heads and you smiling and talking. Do not pose for all of these pictures like a grip and grin where you're like, hi, because that is boring. Candid images are better. Even if you're gesturing, this is better than everyone like a Sears portrait. It's the worst. And finally, when you do leave there, make sure that you have collected the names of the people who were there. Have them sign up so that you can send them a thank you, or a special ebook that you provide. Please do not ask them to sign up for your email. Signing up for your email is like signing up for snail mail, and people do not, or junk mail. So when you say sign up for my email, it's like they don't know what they get. They just know what format it's going to come in, and nobody wants that. What they do really actually want are the tips or the inspiration or the funny cat pictures that you're going to share with them. So for instance, no one really wants any sales catalogs from furniture stores, right? I mean, if Crate and Barrel said, sign up for our catalog, you'd be like, oh, no, thank you. But everyone loves flipping through the catalog once it arrives, because these, furniture catalogs, it's like furniture porn. I mean, the Restoration Hardware catalog looks like the Vogue fall edition. I mean, it is humongous. And you're never going to buy a $10,000 dining room table. I know you, but no one does that. But that's just furniture porn. They just do that, but they don't say, would you like to sign up for our phone book size catalog? No, because that's what it is. So don't ask people to sign up for your email or your newsletter. That's just the format that you provide your brilliance in. And if you do notice, I did not say, make sure you make bookmarks and pens with your book cover on them. Those are nice to haves. People aren't looking for that. And a bookmark isn't going to do much. It's more like it's fun to make those, and you can make them on Canva and get them printed out. But I wouldn't spend your time on that, because what you really care about is promoting yourself. And the people who actually come and collect the bookmark, they're buying the book as well. So you've done your job, and make sure you take pictures with them and have them tag you, and then you can tag them and get in touch with them. And afterward, you will promote and share on social and in your email, on your newsletter, and on your website, the images that came from that event. When you do post those, you will tag the owner of the bookstore and the bookstore, both, because the owner is a profile, but the bookstore is a page. So you will tag both of them each and every time. You will never, ever say, "So glad that I was there. And if you haven't gotten your book yet, here's my Amazon link." Because that is a kick in the shins to the bookstore. You only ever mention the bookstore link when you are promoting your bookstore event. You don't drive people to, "Oh, well, I sent them to bookshop.org." No, you just send them to the bookstore. The bookstore has a payment link. I swear they will appreciate it, and they won't hate you. They really, really, really hate it when authors are promoting their events and then somehow they say, like, "It's okay if you've already bought your book on Amazon or somewhere else, you can bring it." Like, really? No. That's like inviting people over for dinner and saying, "It's okay if you already ate. We're going to provide everything you need for dinner, but if you already ate, and you can just come and hang out." Like, no, you want people to participate. And also, it's so insulting to the bookstore. So don't do that. Last and most importantly, know that all of this is doable. It's doable by you. You do not need to hire someone to do all this for you. Everything I've mentioned is available and simple. I provide examples of all of these elements, even the outreach email that you'll send to the bookstore, and what you'll do afterward, because bookstore owners and people who work at bookstores are never sitting in the back looking at their email, because they run a retail store and they are out in front and setting up displays. So you will send the email, and a day later you will call. And what do you say? Well, I provide that. That's a different live. Well, that's more than I can cover today. But for today, just know that there are some elements that will make your bookstore event so much more powerful for you when you, number one, decide what success means and understand that it's not about how many people you packed into the room or you didn't pack into the room. It's about how you show up. You make the event successful no matter what it looks like. You bring in others who can complement what you're sharing, and you make sure you capture the marketing assets that you will use for the next 3 years. And then you promote the fact that you were there. You will reach more people with post-event than you will before the event or even during the event, because you're going to be using that image for the next 3 years. There you go. If any of this resonates with you, if you're thinking, "I would like some more of this," get in touch, DM me, put something in the chat, say, "Allison, reach out." You can just post, write #bestseller, and I'll reach out to you. So you don't have to do the work. That's my job. I'll reach out to you and we can connect and have a virtual coffee if you want. I am happy to, and I am so glad you showed up for yourself and for the people you serve, because these skills don't come easy. This is 25 years of leading marketing and PR for global brands, and I just happen to now only help authors get their books into the world. It is my joy to share this and to put all of my skills and expertise to good use to help ideas flourish. So get in touch, and I'll see you next week, same time.